Greetings all, and welcome to the 33rd episode of TM Technical Movement. For today, we'll be taking a look at the Tail Slap, Egg Bomb, Payday, Bide, Swift, Hyper Beam and Horn Drill attacks, and the Tail Whip, Substitute, and Shed Tail techniques. Much as the name suggests, the Tail Slap attack is effectively nothing more than a double slap attack performed with a muscular tail, which in turn amplifies its overall damage potential. As with some other normal type Pokemon, the members of the Minccino family, as well as the members of the Nickit family, are not the strongest in terms of physical strength and unable to do much in close quarters. Their tails, on the other hand, are actually stronger than almost all of the muscles in the body put together, and are capable of fairly impressive feats of strength, in turn making them the family's primary form of offense. Because of the intense tail strength, the members of these families are able to deliver double slap attacks with their tail. They're actually far more powerful than the move normally would be, and in a way that is not wholly reflective of the user's attack stat, in turn prompting the classification of their particular variation as a separate move altogether. Aside from damage potential though, the tail slap attack is virtually identical to the double slap attack. On average, a single tail slap attack can strike an opponent 2 to 5 times before the user has to relax his muscles slightly to prepare for another attack, in turn dealing a considerable amount of damage in the right cases. Although the attack is fairly costly in terms of stamina, its damage potential easily covers the issue and makes the attack a fairly dangerous move in close quarters. It is also noted that because the attack actually strikes multiple times in a short period of time, it can be used to override the effects of the sturdy ability and items like the focus sash or focus band, as well as amplify the effects of the weak armor ability, helping to explain why it was instated as TM84 and Silph Co's 8th generation line of TMs and TRs before being discontinued in the following generation. Since an opponent must use a tail of some sort in order to execute the tail slap attack, striking otherwise damaging the offending tail can help reduce and negate the damage dealt by the attack. If this is not an option, however, relatively agile Pokemon can still dodge the attack in close quarters, though there is no way to easily stop the attack once it gets going. Although the attack is capable of taking advantage of abilities like sturdy and weak armor, as well as items like the focus sash and focus band, armor of almost any quality can easily repel the damage dealt by each individual strike, making it difficult to make full use of the attack unless the opponent is unarmored. Even so, the damage capabilities of the tail slap attack on the battlefield are more than enough to make it a potent weapon in any defensive battle. Extreme caution and sturdy defenses are therefore highly recommended for taking the brunt of the blows until a useful counterattack can be made. As one could gather from its name, the Egg Bomb attack involves throwing an egg-shaped ball of energy at an opponent that promptly explodes upon impact. The Egg Bomb attack is more of a quirk than anything else because it's almost completely limited to the executed Happiny families, and even then, not everyone in the family can actually learn the attack. These creatures, apparently because of their strong association with eggs or egg-like objects, seem to be able to generate eggs made out of pure energy whenever they feel like it. The true mechanics of the attack are still a bit of a mystery even today, but it seems to be a direct consequence of their natural ability to produce many seeds or eggs within a short amount of time. On top of being fairly mysterious, these eggs of energy are also highly unstable and are prone to exploding if even the slightest contact is made with them, in turn making them extremely potent projectiles. The explosive damage done by each egg is quite high despite their small size, but the attack's own power serves as its own detriment, as the eggs are so unstable that even the Pokemon responsible for creating them cannot hold onto them for more than a few moments and must eject them almost immediately after they are formed. As such, the attacks are exceptionally inaccurate and difficult to pull off from afar and even in close quarters, which doesn't go very well with a fairly high stamina cost. The amount of damage the attack does, however, still serves as decent compensation for these issues, plus the ability to be affected by items like King's Rocks makes the move a projectile attack with some useful properties in professional battles. If anything else, it can at least serve as a useful distraction while the user is preparing a more powerful attack. Oddly enough, the Egg Bomb attack was one of several moves that Silph Co introduced within its first generation line of TMs, as more of an experiment to test the actual limitations of certain moves even when made into TMs than a true moneymaker. As TM37, the move fared fairly poorly in its inability to be useful outside the same Pokemon that learned the attack naturally, not including Mew, so it was quickly pulled from production after its release. Because it is a projectile attack with no elemental assignment, safely destroying or otherwise countering the Egg Bomb attack is virtually impossible. Thankfully, even relatively agile Pokemon should be able to dodge the move with enough room. Strong armor in general can also reduce and negate the damage dealt by the attack, but weaker armor is unlikely to perform as well without sustaining critical damage or failing altogether. Overall, the Egg Bomb attack is a limited enough attack that seeing it on the battlefield is a fairly rare event. Nonetheless, the amount of damage it can potentially do is high, so strong defenses and especially evasive tactics are highly recommended when facing an opponent able to use this attack. Considered to be the signature attack of the Meowth family, the Payday attack involves opening a temporary wormhole to rain numerous coins on an opponent in an effort to inflict damage. The coin of the foreheads of Meowth and the gems of its evolutions are truly unique objects unlike anything imaginable outside of a legendary Pokemon. The coin-shaped charm of the former is generated from organically fused gold particles created during development in eggs, and it's a fairly permanent fixture to the heads of Meowth, as it's connected directly to the muscle tissue underlying their skin. What makes the charm interesting, however, is that the electromagnetic field given off by it actually can be manipulated in such a way as to create a very small wormhole for a short period of time. Humans have been unable to replicate this amazing ability, and it is in effect a complete mystery as to how it's even possible. The actual properties of the wormhole, however, are understood. For one thing, the wormhole is only one way and cannot allow objects to travel in it from its point of generation above or near Meowth. Second, it only transports one thing: coins. It is believed that the extreme obsession Meowth have with coins is the cause behind this, though how and why it has such an effect on the actual mechanics of the wormhole is still being debated. In effect though, the wormhole acts as a vacuum and sucks up coins from a random location and deposits them directly onto the head of an opponent before the wormhole closes back up. The resulting damage from the rain of coins is fairly small, but the real benefit to this attack is that it always produces coins equivalent to the local currency, so the money is always usable immediately after it appears. The actual amount of money produced tends to be dependent upon the actual experience level of the user, and is thus wholly dependent upon how powerful the Meowth using the attack is. But the fact that it instantly creates money for the user and anyone involved in battle makes it a worthwhile move to have around when money is tight or otherwise hard to come by. That's likely why the move was used as TM16 in Silphco's first generation line of TMs, before it was discontinued for its awkward attributes, only to be reintroduced as TM57 in the special 7th generation console set, and then TM02 in the 8th generation line of TMs and TRs before being discontinued once more. Due to its unique execution style and using projectiles to deal damage, there is no way to directly counter-dodge the Payday attack. Armor can, however, help reduce and negate the damage dealt by the attack. Overall, it is really unlikely that you actually see an attack used in battle, as there are far more useful attacks available to a trainer with the Meowth. Even if it is used, the fact that the damage dealt is fairly small should make it nothing more than a nuisance even to the most unprepared of trainers. Plus, it actually can be of great benefit if you can pick up a little bit of extra change after the fight is over. Much as the name suggests, the Bide attack involves user biding its time and absorbing damage for a short amount of time before unleashing opponent counterattack that inflicts double the amount of damage received. The Bide attack, much like the counter mirror code attacks, is difficult to classify as a true attack because the damage it does is completely dependent upon the amount of damage received from an opponent's last assault, and is thus effectively only a countering technique. In using the Bide attack, a Pokémon readies itself to absorb damage from the opposition even has a chance to strike, and then endures repeated blows over the duration of about 2 combat turns. At the conclusion of its operation, the user uses the physical pain endured to fuel a potent physical retaliating blow that delivers damage equal to twice the amount sustained awaiting before the opponent can even begin to prepare a counterattack, striking with increased priority. Although the Bite attack does not have the same instant gratification of its counterparts in the counter and mirror code attacks, it is heavily benefited in that it can actually inflict damage based on both physical and special attacks, is unaffected by armor, and has the capacity to hit Pokémon in the first phase of a bounce, dive, or Shadow Force attack, though Ghost types are still immune to its effects, hence its normal type assignment. While it still cannot be truly aimed and will always inflict damage upon the last Pokémon to strike the user, the Bite attack's potential for damage is quite immense in the hands of defensively minded Pokémon. It is for this reason that Silphco decided to release the move as TM34 from the first generation line of TMs, but the move proved to be less popular than desired even though nearly every species could learn the move and it was discontinued afterwards. The only true way to avoid getting damaged by a Bite attack is to avoid damage to the opposition while the move is in effect, otherwise defeating them before it can reach its conclusion. The Swift attack essentially involves striking an opponent with a star-shaped burst of energy to inflict damage. As one of the simplest of all energy-based attacks, the Swift attack is nothing more than a spray of energy-based projectiles designed to inflict a small amount of damage on the opposition. Because the projectiles are made without any energy modification, they have no basic type and thus considered to be normal type in nature. The projectiles are also star-shaped, but the reason behind this choice in shape is still a mystery. It is possible, however, that this is simply the most convenient shape that allows the projectiles to maintain a stable form before impacting a target. Regardless, the Swift attack does its otherwise moderate damage potential justice because so many of these small projectiles can be produced at once that the attack essentially becomes unavoidable unless the opponent is in the middle of a fly or dig attack. This perfect accuracy rate makes the Swift attack a potent move among young Pokémon and can even find a place among advanced battle strategies, particularly because it can strike multiple nearby opponents in battle while only suffering a 25% drop in base power, plus the fact that it is affected by items like King's Rocks. It is for this reason that Silphco decided to release the move as TM39 within the first and second generation lines of TMs, but declining popularity in favor of more exotic attacks with similar effects eventually led to its discontinuation, though it was eventually reinstated as TM40 in the 8th generation line and then made into TM32 in the 9th generation line. Due to its energy-based nature and unique attributes, there is no way to directly counter the Swift attack, and it is almost impossible to dodge. Armor can, however, help reduce and negate the damage dealt by the attack. The Swift attack's moderate damage capacity only belittles the damage it can actually do to teams that prefer to use accuracy and evasion differences to their advantage, but since dodging is out of the question, there are tactics that can be taken against it are to bring on a Pokémon with decent armor, or one that has high enough defenses to take the blow with little trouble. In effect, the Hyper Beam attack involves firing a beam of destructive energy at an opponent in an effort to inflict damage. To this date, no one is actually quite sure what the Hyper Beam truly is or how it actually works. All that can be said with certainty is that the move has no definite elemental characteristics and is thus classified as a normal type attack. The Hyper Beam itself is merely a beam of condensed energy fired at an opponent in an attempt to inflict damage. The actual source of the energy seems to vary, but is at least partially dependent upon the user's natural access to non-mechanical energy for offense. In short, the user gathers up all of its available non-mechanical energy and converts it into a type of light energy before firing out in the form of a highly energetic beam able to inflict massive amounts of damage on whatever it hits. At least that's what most believe happens. In truth, no one is actually quite sure how this process is even initiated or how it's able to inflict such massive damage despite only relying on pure energy devoid of assignable elemental attributes. What can be said, however, is that the attack takes a noticeable amount of time to charge up, so it's not perfectly accurate in all cases. Moreover, the attack generates such a massive strain on the user from its use that it must rest for a few minutes to regain its composure before being able to attack again. Even so, the massive amount of damage the attack can do is more than worth taking a chance on, as it ties with the Giga Impact attack in terms of damage potential, and is only outdone by the self-destruct and explosion attacks in pure normal type power. Silphco in particular saw great potential in the attack early on, and decided to release it as TM15 within the first generation line of TMs. Needless to say, the move became an instant success, especially since it can be learned by nearly every single fully evolved Pokemon and even a few unevolved ones, and has remained one of the company's biggest sellers through every single generation since, including the recent Sinnoh Special Edition set, and even after being changed to TM8 in the 8th generation line and TM163 in the 9th generation line. Due to its use of pure energy to inflict damage, there is no way to directly counter the Hyper Beam attack. Moderately agile Pokemon, however, can still dodge the attack given enough room. Strong armor in general can also reduce the damage dealt by the attack, but weaker armor is unlikely to perform as well without sustaining critical damage or failing altogether. The Hyper Beam attack is without a doubt one of the most dangerous and powerful attacks available to any Pokemon, and is an extremely likely sight to see in battle because of the wide number of Pokemon able to learn it via TM. Evasive tactics and the strongest of defenses possible are therefore highly recommended for reducing the enormous threat the move poses to anyone unlucky enough to get in its way. As its name would imply, the Horn Drill attack involves striking an opponent with a horn rotating at high speeds, ripping through flesh and armor alike without any favor towards defenses. While the horns of most creatures are stationary and are incapable of rotational motion, there are a small number of Pokemon that can in fact rotate their horns, or their entire bodies in the case of Excadrill, fast enough to make them exceptionally potent weapons. Unfortunately, such delicate manipulation means that quite a bit of time is needed to prepare this attack, and in turn meaning that the attack is inaccurate through function alone. In practice, however, the move's true accuracy is actually dependent upon the relative difference in combat experience between two sides. An opponent of a higher experience level will always be able to dodge this attack in close quarters, but as the experience level begins to swing more and more in the favor of the user, the chance of the attack actually hitting begins to climb dramatically. It is currently unknown why exactly this is the case, but it is hypothesized that intimidation may be the primary factor behind this phenomenon. Regardless, the damage capabilities of the Horn Drill attack are beyond calculation. The moment the Horn Drill attack connects, the sheer vibrational forces generated by the rotating drill are enough to overload the target's nerves in the immediate and surrounding areas, in turn overloading their brain and sending it into a state very similar to that seen in Shock. It won't be long after this the opponent loses complete consciousness. Thankfully, the actual damage done by the Horn Drill attack can be fairly small, even negligible, when striking hard armor, but the attack will nonetheless have the same impact and will knock out the opponent every single time it hits. Not even items or abilities to protect against knockout blows can prevent cataclysmic damage from this move, nor can changes in the accuracy or evasion stat of either side. With the Horn Drill attack, every target is fair game. Not surprisingly, Silphco saw massive potential with this move, and joyfully included it within the first generation line of TMs as TM7, but they quickly pulled it from the line afterwards when they realized how unfair the attack's actual capabilities were. Due to its exceptionally low accuracy rate, dodging the Horn Drill attack should be fairly easy even for smaller Pokemon, and should be the only logical measure taken to avoid the attack. As long as the opponent isn't at the same level of experience as your own Pokemon or higher, there should be nothing to worry about. If this is not the case, however, the only useful strategy that can be used is to run like heck and hope that the attack misses. Otherwise, there's absolutely nothing capable of preventing the attack from knocking out your Pokemon instantly. As one might gather from its name alone, the tail-whip technique involves cutely wagging one's tail in an attempt to make the opposition less wary about taking damage. Much like the growl technique, the tail-whip technique is designed to use deception to make an opponent weaker than it may normally be. Instead of fiercely wagging a tail as if preparing for battle, Pokemon using a tail-whip technique wag their tails only a little bit in a surprisingly cute fashion in order to make them seem less dangerous than they really are. This in turn helps to relax the opposition and make them feel safer in battle, seeing this cute act as a sign that the target isn't likely a real threat to them, causing these entities to then lower their guard and force the defense stat to drop. This move itself is fairly cost-effective in terms of stamina, very difficult to dodge, and has the capacity to affect multiple opponents, so it certainly has some merit to it in battle. It may not be guaranteed to win any particular battle, but when faced with a powerful opponent with nothing other than physical attacks at your disposal, it can definitely make it easier to finish a battle or at least survive longer than the opponent in the short run. Attacks and techniques that raise a Pokemon's defense stat or lower an opponent's attack stat are highly recommended for dealing with the Tail Whip technique. As one could garner from its simple name, the substitute technique involves user generating an energy-based substitute to take damage for them in place of their own physical form. The true mechanics of the substitute technique are still a mystery, but what can be said is that a substitute itself is an energy-based doll or clone of sorts that is created from approximately 25% of the user's maximum HP, if that amount is available, the energy packed together and semi-solidified as a physical construct. Without this energy, the substitute only has 1 HP and is otherwise useless, but with it though, it obviously has 25% of the user's HP plus 1. While this substitute exists, it mimics the appearance of the move's user so effectively that it tricks the opposition into thinking that it is the actual opponent, allowing it to draw in any damage intended for the user. The substitute continues to soak up damage until it loses all the energy used to create it plus what little energy it provided itself, at which point it breaks and no longer provides cover. Aside from acting as a damaged bodyguard, the substitute provides some interesting protection in that it is unaffected by any stat afflictions or alterations that will always be made to the user by an attacker technique, even going so far as to suppress the effects of the infamous Intimidate ability. However, the substitute is limited in that it cannot prevent the effects of moves used by the user, the ultimate stats, or the effects of pre-inflicted status conditions. Moreover, there are some moves like Perish Song and Grudge among others, and all sound-based moves that cannot be blocked as a result of unique attributes. The move might not be learned by many species of Pokemon naturally, but its usefulness in wasting the opponent's time preventing otherwise devastating changes from the secondary effects of attacks and techniques can make it a great move for all types of defensive combatants. These factors made the move extremely appealing to Silphcore early on, and spurred them to release the move as TM50 within the first generation line of TMs. Unfortunately, the move was quickly deemed to be unfair afterwards because nearly every species of Pokemon was able to learn it, so it was discontinued. A recent resurgence in popularity, however, led the company to reinstate the move as TM90 within the 4th through 7th generation line of TMs, as well as the recent Sinnoh Special Edition set, as TR20 in the first line of TRs, and finally TM103 in the 9th generation line of TMs, from which it has remained fairly popular. Unless the opponent has less than 25% of its maximum HP left, and only has 1 HP as with Shedinja, there is no way to directly counter the effects of the substitute technique outside of wasting time and stamina to break the substitute. Much as the name suggests, the Shed Tail technique involves user generating an energy-based substitute from a tail part to take damage for them in place of their own physical form after being passed off to another party member. The true mechanics of the Shed Tail technique are still a mystery, but what can be said is the Shed Tail itself is very similar to the substitute, an energy-based false tail prop that is created from approximately 50% of the user's maximum HP if the amount is available, though it can only take half as much damage before destabilizing and fading away. The reason for this is that, unlike a regular substitute, this false tail is unstable and can't actually be passed off to another party member because the excess energy used to make it renders it even more solid to an extent and thus can be physically transferred to someone else, a trade-off that can potentially be worth it in the right circumstances. While this Shed Tail exists, it effectively tricks the opponent into thinking it's the actual target and draws any damage intended for the user. The substitute then continues to soak up damage until it loses what's left of the energy used to create it, plus what little energy it had itself, at which point it breaks and no longer provides cover. Aside from acting as a damaged bodyguard, the Shed Tail provides some interesting protection in that it is also unaffected by any stat afflictions or alterations that will otherwise be made to the user by an attacker technique, even going so far as to suppress the effects of the infamous Intimidate ability. However, the Shed Tail is limited in that it cannot prevent the effects of moves used by the user, the ultimate stats, or the effects of pre-inflicted status conditions. Moreover, there are also moves like Perish Song and Grudge among others, and all sound-based moves that cannot be blocked as a result of unique attributes. The move might not be learned by many species of Pokemon naturally, but its usefulness in wasting the opponent's time and preventing otherwise devastating changes from the secondary effects of attacks and techniques can make it a great move for all types of Pokemon that can actually learn it. Unless an opponent has less than 50% of its maximum HP left, or no teammates to pass the generated Shed Tail off to, there's no way to directly counter the effects of the Shed Tail technique outside wasting time and stamina to break said Shed Tail. That's it for now, so look forward to our next set of moves here on TM Technical Movement. Thank you all for watching this video. It is a great pleasure to share with you all the fruits of my research and all the positives it gives to understanding the wonderful creatures we call Pokemon and how their powers and behaviors function in their world. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more work like it, please give a like, comment, and or subscribe to the channel so you can get regular notifications on when new content is being uploaded. You can also find links to my DeviantArt page, Patreon, and Discord server in the description below. Please, join me on this road to seeing what the world of Pokemon has to share with us, and the many mysteries and wonders that keep us all coming back for more.